Hey guys, it is Monday here in West Virginia, and today we're doing a showcase video for our Mopar Monday. Today we're showcasing the famous 1963 to 1968 lightweight superstock Dodges and Plymouths. Now, not all of them are accounted for in this video. I don't have anything from 66 or 67, and obviously I don't have models of every car that was produced by Chrysler for drag racing in the Superstock series, but I do have a lot of them that were released from all the big brands like Auto World, Greenlight, and even Hot Wheels. All premium items. So we're going to start with the year 63, obviously. So right here in front of us, we have all of the 63 Dodges from Auto World. Now, I didn't bring out the two factory ones. The factory ones are up here. As you can see, I have them sitting here. Well, they're all factory, but these are like the family ones that only had maybe, I don't know what would have been like a 318 or something like that. Back then in 63, I'm not sure what they had as like their standard size engine. Now, these wedge cars here, these are the lightweight ones that have the scoops on it. Actually, let me move this guy, and then I'll move the white one over here. And these are the ones that are pretty tough to find nowadays from Auto World, and they're a little bit pricey when you do find them. Sometimes you can get them for a decent price, but most of the time, if they're carded, they're going for, I don't know, like 30 bucks plus, especially for the black one and the red one. The white one, the teal one, or mint green one, whatever you want to call that, are a little bit easier to find. But still yet a little bit of a challenge. So these were powered by a 426 wedge, and the 426 wedge is not the Hemi. This is a year before the 426 came out. They did have cross ram on it, the staggered 2.4 barrels, and there were two versions of the wedge cars. There were these lightweight ones, which they only made a handful of them. I think they were even rarer than the Hemi Darts and Hemi Barracudas from 68, but I'm not sure on the production numbers. I do know that most cars, though, were post cars. So seeing these hardtop models, I don't know how many of the lightweights were hardtops. I know there was a couple, if that. I mean, maybe at least literally like 2 or 3, or maybe there were 4. That's why Auto World has these 4 hardtops in these colors and never made another one past this, because there were never any others produced from the factory. But I don't know. I know in the Plymouth, they made, I think it was 3 hardtops, and the rest were 2-door post cars. The posts were the popular choice by the manufacturer for the lightweight stuff. Don't know why. So anyways, these are the Dodges, the Polara. Now, these are the 63 Plymouths. These are made by Hot Wheels. This one here in particular came from the 100% set of Reggie's cars. Reggie Jackson, the baseball player, was a car collector, and this came in a 4-piece set in a display case. It was this lightweight Plymouth, and then there was a 40 Ford Coupe, a 32 Ford Roadster Street Rod, and then a 56 Chevy Pro Street. This is the only stock muscle car in the set. Everything else is street rods and hot rods and stuff like that. So, as you can see, it also has a cross ram wedge engine. And when I say aluminum front ends, the hoods, fenders, and bumpers, I think even the rear bumper were aluminum. Later on, they started using glass, fiberglass, but this was an aluminum front end car, just like these guys here. And then there is another model from the 100%. This is from Dick Landy. Now, these are hard to find without the rubber band damage. Luckily, I was able to obtain this one that somebody took out when they first bought it, and I was able to get it from them, so there's no damage from the rubber bands. As you can see, it's perfect. Same thing with Reggie's car. Somebody had taken it out of the case before the rubber bands did any severe damage to it. There are a few more of these available, but not stock looking. There's one that's orange with purple flames from like a Hot Rod magazine set. Then there is one that is actually in a NASCAR select series, and it's one of Richard Petty's old race cars. But I don't know how accurate it is. I don't know if Petty had a 63 post car, and granted it wasn't going to be probably an aluminum front end car because there were so very few of them. Most of them were obtained by drag racers. Now, Hot Wheels stopped using this casting after, I think it was like 2004 was the last 100% stuff that we seen. They retooled it in, I think it was 2010, and this is what we got. This guy here. This is the Hot Wheels Garage from 2011. And this is a nice looking casting. What they did, they made the bumpers part of the base instead of having them as separate pieces. As you can see here, the bumper and the front roll pan are part of the base. And then, same thing with the rear bumper is part of the base. And the dimensions, though, like the size of the cars, stayed the same for the most part. So I don't know if they modified this casting, the tool, and then came up with this. There are a few nice ones of this model available. There are a lot of them, well, not a lot, but a couple that had just plastic wheels on it, like one from the Cool Classic series, and there was another one too. And then the Garage series had this red one, which is my favorite. It looks bone stock, like you would have seen one from the factory. Then they had this one that says Hold Tight, which looks like a factory race car from the early 60s with the striping, hence the name Candy Striper from the Gasser, the 55, because back in the 60s, a lot of people put these stripes on their cars and they looked like candy stripes. So that's why they got that name, Candy Striper. So anyways, these are the first two versions of the new tooling of that car. Since then, as I said, they've released a few that had like the retro slots, which are plastic wheels, and some others. And then they had a couple of more, one being this guy from the 2-pack from Target. This is a cool one because it reminds me of an old Sox and Martin car in the red, white, and blue. So it's a cool piece, but it just says Mopar. It's not driven by anybody in particular. And then moving along from 63 to 64. Now, since we're in front of Mr. Norm's garage here, we'll show you his car. This is a 64. Oh, this is a 64 Plymouth. Sorry, I got to find his Dodge. Where did I put it at? Well, I have no idea. So we'll go with the 64 Plymouth that I just had. This is not Mr. Norm's 64 Plymouth. He had a 64 Dodge 330 post car. This is a 64 Plymouth Fury from Greenlight. Very nicely done. This is their two-door hardtop version. Has a little bit of like speckling in the clear. Some of their older models start doing this after time, but it's not too bad. And it does have the scooped hood. And it looks like it has a wedge in it and not a Hemi. But in 64, I don't know how many lightweight wedge cars were made. Most people were after the Hemi because it was, well, proven to be the best engine for drag racing, most powerful, and things like that, hands down. So anyways, these cars also, this casting from Greenlight has a plastic roof because they used the same body for convertible models, hardtop models, and also post models. I don't have any post of it, but I do have the hardtop of their Coronet. This is a 65 Coronet, and this is their 65 Coronet with the post roof. These are both plastic roofs, but it's kind of cool how they were able to do that. So I really do like that idea that they came up with. Usually I don't like the plastic roofs on cars, but since they made it that versatile where they have the post model, the hardtop model, and convertible model of that. And I think they did the same with the Fury. I know for sure they have the hardtops, obviously. We got that right here in front of us. And here's another one of them. Done in black, actually. Looks really good. Black with a red interior. It was a very popular color scheme in the early 60s. So, yeah, very nicely car. You could even see how how you can see the ridges in the plastic through the paint, and then sometimes they look a little duller than the rest of the car. Because it is plastic. These did come with white line tires, as you could see here, but they look much better if you flip the tires over for black walls. It looks more aggressive, like a hot rod. The white walls make it look like a family car, like it's nothing special. But with the black walls, they look really, really good. So yeah, I'm still looking. I had that Mr. Norm's car. Here it is. Just found it. So this is from Johnny Lightning. 64 Dodge 330. Hot Wheels makes one too, but they haven't done any models of any like famous drag racers I'm surprised of. They just use the casting for random things. They have one from their Neo Classic series from RLC in a Spectre Flame Red, which is beautiful. Then they have another one from the Since 68 lineup in a metallic black with red interior. That one has also plastic wheels, but that would be a nice one to get in wheel swap or base swap. But anyways, the problem with the Johnny Lightning one, it's way, way too small. So here's a 64 Dodge from Johnny Lightning. Now there's one here. This is not from Hot Wheels, but this is from RCCA, Action Racing Collectibles, Racing Collectible Club of America, something like that's what it stands for. But as you can see, how much bigger this thing is. It's mammoth compared to the Johnny Lightning one. And you could check it with like 63s from Auto World. It's exactly the same size, how it should be. The 63 and 4 body were pretty much the same. Johnny Lightning's is more like, I don't know, it's not as small as like a 187th, but it's probably like a 180 or something like that. It's small. It's hard to even get it to fit in good in the diorama. That's why I put it in my showroom, because it's away from everything else, so it can kind of fit in a little bit, but you can still kind of tell how tiny it is. But it fits okay sometimes at the showroom. So that's why it stays in there and doesn't come out, because it's really hard to get this thing to fit into a diorama. It's nicely done, the details and stuff, but it's just way too small. Now, moving along, unfortunately, I don't have any lightweight stuff from 66 or 67. I don't even know if anybody produces anything. Greenlight does make a 66, 67 Coronet. This guy here. But I don't think they have any like factory lightweights, and I'm not even sure if there was a factory lightweight Coronet from 6 or 7, but I'm sure there was, because they had a 67 Plymouth Belvedere that was a lightweight car and such. So then I'm sure that Dodge had theirs to be the counterpart to Plymouth. But yeah, this is the casting of a 66, 67 style Coronet. Actually, this is a 67 because it has the RT badge. The RT trim did not start until 67. So anything that's like prior to a 67, if it says RT, it's a fake. So the RT came out in 67. Now this is a 66 Charger from M2, which is very nice. They had the Hemi, as you can see, it's got the Hemi badge, and it has the opening hood with a nicely detailed engine compartment. This is when M2 still really took a lot of pride in their castings. This thing was beautifully done. Love this car. And I'm really not a first gen Charger fan, but that car in particular is one that I really like. It's actually my only first gen Charger in my collection anymore, but it's one to hang on to because it's a really cool looking piece. So we're going to skip the 6 and 7s and go to 68. 68, we had the BO29 or BO29 Super Stock Hemi Barracuda. This car came from the factory like this. This is delivered to drag racers just like this out of the Hearst factory, where they hand installed a lot of the stuff, the fiberglass fenders and hood. And you could see how this is still gray primer. That's because it was the header panel for the front grille support. They didn't have a fiberglass one, they only had the metal. But when they were delivered, they came in gray primer. Everything metal was in gray primer, and the black front fenders and hood were gel coat. That was actually the factory gel coat from fiberglass fenders and such. And these had like Lexan side glass. The side glass was pulled up with a little tether, like a little piece of canvas pulled up and snapped to the headliner. So they had everything deleted. Had radio, heaters, everything. And then they had that mammoth 426 Hemi in there. This doesn't really give it any justice. That looks like a wedge also, kind of. But it did have that mammoth 426 elephant in it with the cross ram. So very cool. It was delivered to the drag racers like that. And then the drag racers put on their livery and things of that nature. And there's one car I skipped for 65. I forgot all about. I skipped the 65, and I have all of them. 65 was the only year that Mopar made a factory AWB, meaning altered wheelbase. Plymouth did some with their Fury, and Dodge did some with their Coronet. And I don't know, probably the most popular ones back then, the Honker was, I got that one. These are the two most valuable ones if you're collecting for money and you have these in your collection. These are worth a pretty good penny. I think they're worth like 50, 60 bucks a piece if they're on the card. Loose, probably like 30 or 40 a piece. Stack Deck and the Honker. But probably the ones that are the most popular, for me anyways, would be the Ram Chargers, because that was the experimental design team for Chrysler. And then Dick Landy with his for Landy Dodge. These two, as you can see how they moved everything forward to help plant the rear tires. They moved the front wheels forward, the rear wheels forward, and the engine stayed where it was, but it put more weight to the rear the way it transferred and made the car hook up better. So these were factory from Mopar, but they only built, I think, like 5 of them for Dodge and 5 Plymouths. A lot of them you see out there are custom fabricated by car guys. Now, the Barracuda, back to it. I'm sorry I cut so short on those, but we're getting long here on time. So here's the Barracuda. It would have had bigger rear meats on it, but this is one from Hot Wheels, and they did a pretty decent job. I think it's kind of close to being true to scale more than the M2. I think the M2 is a little bit big, but just a tad bit. I think the Hot Wheels is a little closer to true 164, but as I said, the M2 is close enough. But this would be one of the most famous ones from back then, the Sox and Martin Barracuda. I'm really surprised Hot Wheels hasn't done more of these and put a bigger back tire on them with drag racing names, because they had the rights to a lot of people. And anyways, here is the Dart. The Dart was the LO23, and it came the same way. Gray primer with a black gel coat front end that was fiberglass, and came with stock black steel rims and little dinky polyglass tires that were ripped off, and they were replaced with big slicks and front runners. As you can see on the Dart, they had to cut the quarter panel open. The stock Dart, yeah, here we go. This is a 69, but the same thing. As you can see, the wheel opening on a stock Dart is like that. It covered the top part of your tire. Well, for the Hemi one, from the factory, they took it and cut them open, kind of squared it off and raised the wheel opening so you could get like a 30-inch or taller, maybe 32-inch tall slick that's like 10, 12 inches wide, and it could hang out a little bit if it needed to be. But a lot of these guys took these cars and even further modified the rear and moved the wheel tubs inboard to the frame rails, because there's a lot of space in there. And then they cut the housing of the rear end, narrowed it some, so they could get like, I don't know, a 14-inch slick under it. Maybe not that big, but pretty close to it. And they didn't have to cut the frame or anything. Just move the springs inboard and stretch the tub a little bit. So guys, that's pretty much it for our video for today. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of history on these very popular Mopars. This is what kind of built Mopar as what they are today. Always trying to build the fastest, most badass quarter-mile cars out there. I mean, they care a little bit about like course style racing, but they were more for massive horsepower, quick 0 to 60s and quarter mile times. So this is what it was all built on. This is where it all started. So guys, that's it for today. I will be back probably tomorrow to crack open another square body dually for you. And we probably will have some wagons for Wednesday, I hope. We'll just see what happens to come in this week. So it just started, so we'll see what we get in the mail today and tomorrow and such. But I will have the truck. I got it on Saturday, so I will unbox it for you guys tomorrow. So thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.